In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to solve a square root equation. So the first thing to remember is that a square root equation is undone by a square. So to undo a square root equation or square root, we need to square it. So if I'm looking at this first example here, I'm noticing that I can't undo anything besides that square root at this point. I'm kind of stuck. So I am going to square both sides. And when I square x, I get x squared. And when I square this square root, I just get the radicand. So 3x plus 4. Now we know I have a quadratic. So I know how to solve quadratics. We have a couple of different methods to solve quadratics. You can do factoring, quadratic formula, completing the squares, square roots, graphing. There are a bunch of different ways. But I'm going to suggest that you definitely do this by either factoring or quadratic formula, which means all of my terms need to be on one side. So I'm going to move this 3x and 4 to the other side by inverse operations. So I have x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals 0. Now I have my choice. I can do quadratic formula or factoring. In this case, I think factoring might be easier because it looks like they're pretty small numbers. So I'm going to do it by factoring. So to solve a quadratic by factoring, I'm going to look at the constant there, which is 4. And I'm going to list the factors of 4. I've got 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Then I look at my linear term, which is negative 3x. How do I get negative 3 from these terms up here? I have negative 4 plus 1. So that is going to be what fill my binomials, x minus 4, x plus 1. And I always like to do a quick double check here to make sure that it works. Negative 4x plus 1x is negative 3x, and then negative 4 times positive 1 is negative 4. So we are set. All right, so now I can solve this by taking each one and setting it equal to 0. And solving each one. So here I'm going to add 4. So x equals 4. Here I'm going to subtract 1. So x equals negative 1. Now the tricky part about solving square root equations is that you've got to verify your answer. You've got to check to make sure both of these answers are actually accurate answers. And you do that by plugging them into the original equation. So I'm going to plug in 4 first. So I'm going to do it before I even square. I'm going to do it in the very first thing that I started with, which was just x equals the square root of 3 times x plus 4. Okay, so I'm plugging in 4 for my x. So 4 equals the square root of 12 plus 4. 12 plus 4 is 16. The square root of 16 is 4. So 4 is definitely an answer. Okay, so I'm going to box 4. Let's check with negative 1. So I'm going to plug in negative 1. Negative 1 equals the square root of 3 times negative 1 plus 4. So I've got negative 1 equals the square root of negative 3 plus 4. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. So 1 does not equal negative 1. That means that that is an extraneous solution. So my only answer to this equation is x equals 4.